Hi guys, it's Teresa. Welcome back to my channel. First off, if my face still looks weird, I had a little bit of a skiing accident last week. If you've seen that vlog, you will know. So I'm still like red in certain patches, but I am very close to being healed. All I still have is like a sprained thumb, but other than that, I'm fine. So yeah, just in case I look weird, I don't really know. Just wanted to let you know, you can go watch that vlog if you're interested in seeing more of what happened. But in today's video, I wanted to continue my little series I'm currently doing on book recommendations. I've done 2 videos already on series that I really recommend, like my favorite series ever, and I thought I'd round it off with my favorite standalones ever. But before we get started, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and now let's jump right into it. The first book is The Crane Stands by Meg Howry. This is an adult general fiction contemporary, I guess. It's not really contemporary in the sense that it's about romance, but it's about these 2 sisters who are both ballerinas. I think they're in their early 30s or so. So what I find interesting about that is that usually books that have to do with ballet talk about like young teenage girls trying to make it in the business, whereas this book focuses on 2 girls that have already made it and that are successful in their careers as ballerinas and the issues they kind of face within that. One of the sisters has had a bit of a mental breakdown and has had to leave the ballet world, and the other sister feels very guilty and she blames herself for what happened. And so this book is about the 2 sisters, their relationship, these feelings of guilt, and the second sister kind of also dealing with mental health issues herself. I just found this book very, very well written. I think it's funny and moving at the same time. The writing style is beautiful, and especially if you have a sister, you will probably find parts of your own experience of that in this book. I just all around found it really, really moving, and adding to that I personally am very interested in the world of ballet. I just was fascinated from start to finish. I love this book. I love the different perspective that it gives, as I said, and I really recommend you to read this even if you're not like 100,000% interested in ballet itself. This next book will come as no surprise because I have yet to shut up about it, and that is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is a 2018 new release, and it's a mystery with a twist. The author himself said that he was inspired by Agatha Christie and her kind of classic mysteries in writing this book, and definitely shines through. This book is set in an undeterminate time period, but it's definitely a past setting, and we follow this man who wakes up in the woods, and as he stumbles out of the woods, he comes across a house in which a party is taking place, and as he enters the party, he finds out that he's actually a party guest. The night goes on. At the end of the night, the lady of the house, the daughter of the house, called Evelyn Hardcastle, dies, and the next day he wakes up and has to relive that same day again, except this time he's in the body of a different party guest, and he finds out that it is basically his job to figure out what happens to this girl. He has to do this every day in the body of a different person. I love the setup of this book. It's very different, it's very intricate, and I know that a lot of people don't particularly enjoy that. It's very complex, and you do have to do a lot of thinking on your own to try to keep up with everything that's happening because there's so many intersecting time and like plot strands. But this book was just 100% my cup of tea. I thought it was very well written. It's so clever, and I was completely blown away by it. I cannot wait for my reread. I've been saying that since I first read it. I haven't yet come around to actually rereading it, but I'm so excited to re-experience it, try to pick up on all the little hints. Yeah, I'm just so excited to get to read it again. So if you have not read it yet, be excited that you can. This next book is The Idiot by Elif Batuman. This is also one of my favorite books of 2018. It follows a young girl of Turkish descent in the US as she gets accepted into Harvard. And even though she's very smart academically, she's not really all that good at social things. She ends up having a crush on a Hungarian guy with a girlfriend, and she follows him to Hungary to teach English over the summer. The plot of this is very sparse, and it's pretty much what I just said. It's about this girl at uni, and then eventually she goes to Hungary, and that's kind of about it. What made this book so special to me was the main character of Selin, who I just found so endearing and so interesting to like read about her thoughts and her experience. It's very funny at times. There's so much like dry humor and and wit in this book that actually had me laugh out loud several times while reading. I've mentioned this before, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of vlog style content in its writing, because it's sort of this stream of consciousness, often kind of a little bit rambly, just sort of detailing her everyday life occurrences. And to some people that might be mundane and boring, but I personally love vlogs and I personally really love this book. Again, it's not for everyone, but if that description sounds at all appealing to you, I definitely recommend checking it out. The next book is nonfiction, and that is Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. This is Jon Krakauer's account of a 1996 ascent of Mount Everest alongside a group of hikers. In that fateful season, a lot of people unfortunately ended up passing away, and in this book he not only details that particular situation, but also gives a lot of background information on Mount Everest and some of the accidents and dangers that go along with attempting to climb it. I personally found this book extremely fascinating. I could not put it down. I read it during the wintertime, and I was literally under my blankets vicariously freezing for these people attempting such a thing as climbing Mount Everest. I do not understand how anybody would ever want to do that, but I am just absolutely fascinated with the people that do and did. And I just found it so interesting. It was very well written. It was written almost like a mystery in a sense. So you're not presented with all the facts at the beginning. You're given them piece by piece. And I found that just such an engrossing and gripping way of storytelling. I love this book. I love the background information I learned from it. And if you're at all interested, check it out. Another nonfiction that blew me away was Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. This is subtitled as The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI, and it takes place in the 1920s. So most of this book takes place in the 1920s, recounting what happened to the Osage Native American tribe at the time, in which suddenly a series of murders started occurring and nobody really knew what was happening. Authorities did end up getting involved, but they weren't making any headway for a long time until the FBI, the newly formed FBI, started getting involved. And even then, they weren't able to 100% clear up everything. So the last bit of the book is told in the present time by David Grann, the journalist who wrote this book, recounting the things that he ended up discovering basically now after the fact. So he not only gives us an account of what happened back then, but he kind of completes the picture a little bit for us. I personally was absolutely astonished and blown away by the fact that I had not heard of this before. The amount of people that died on this reservation is incredible. I have no idea why this is not more prevalently talked about. I think it's absolutely horrendous what happened to them, and the absolute least we can do is inform ourselves of the situation. I wish more people would talk about this. I wish more people would read this, and if you do get around to it, I highly recommend it. Going into a little bit of a different direction, the next book I really loved was Persuasion by Jane Austen. This is obviously a classic. This book is about a girl called Anne who falls in love with a young man but is persuaded by her family away from pursuing this relationship, so they break it off, and several years later he re-enters the picture, and she kind of has to deal with the fact that she still has feelings for him and kind of wants to rekindle the situation. And it's about her regretting past decisions, kind of finding her own voice and finding out what she actually wants to do and doing that thing that she actually wants to do. And I just love the story. It's a very cute, sweet little romance. I think it's very well written. It's very engaging. And I know that a lot of Jane Austen books can feel a little bit samey at times, which I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because if it's a good book, then I don't mind reading it in slight variations several times over. I just really enjoyed it. I think for a classic, it's a very quick read. And especially if you're kind of maybe trying to get into classics, but you're a little bit intimidated, pick something up like this. It's very unintimidating, I think, and it's really, really well done. Next, I have a myth retelling, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is a retelling, obviously, of the story of Achilles, who was a demigod and obviously is most known for his role in the Battle of Troy. And I used to be very, very interested in Greek mythology as a kid, so I read a lot of the myths, and I just absolutely loved what Madeline Miller did with this particular myth, because sometimes the Greek myth can be a little bit impersonal to read and it's a little stale, I guess, and I love how much life and depth she added to this pre-existing story. At its core, this is also kind of a love story between Achilles and Patroclus, his childhood friend, and can I just say that that is one of the sweetest, most adorable romances that I have ever read about. I was rooting for them from start to finish, and even though I knew how it would end, I got too invested and I bawled my eyes out at the ending, I will tell you that. I think the book is written so well and it gives so much personality and realness to these Greek mythological figures that you feel so much more with them and for them than if you were to read just the original myth. I love what you did with the story. If I don't shut up now, I probably never will, but yeah, definitely read this book. It's 100% a must read. Next, I have The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. This is a story of a young girl that lives in a bookshop with her father, and she sometimes for fun kind of writes autobiographies for dead people, which she really enjoys. One day she gets a letter by a famous author asking if she wants to basically come live with her for a while so she can tell her her life story, and that this girl, like young woman, can finally write it down and bring it to the public. This young woman is called Margaret, and obviously as she starts delving more into the lives of this author, a lot of very interesting things are revealed, and she finds that in this author's life and her own, there are so many different parallels, and it resonates with her, and the story is very intricate, it's very involved, there's a lot of different characters, and there's plot twists everywhere. I think it's so well written, it's really cool. The only thing that kind of tainted my experience of this book is that I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo before this, and Evelyn Hugo definitely stole the premise from this book. I was trying not to let that influence my experience of reading this, but I just got angry a lot of the times because I didn't particularly enjoy Evelyn Hugo, and this is just so much better, but I feel like less well known, especially on BookTube. So yeah, if Evelyn Hugo was not 100% your thing, or you're just looking for a good book, 100% check this out. It's so well done. I loved it. It was really cool. I wish I had read this before Evelyn Hugo because it really would have deserved it. This video is getting a little long, so I'm gonna have to speed it up, but there are 4 more books to go. The first is The Paying Guests by Sarah Waters. This is, I think, kind of like a controversial book. I say this all the time, but nobody has ever been able to confirm that. I don't know if it's true. This is set in the 1920s in London, and we follow a young woman and her mother that live in a huge house, but they are starting to be short on money and are having to take on lodgers, which at the time was kind of embarrassing because it's like, well, you don't have the money to afford this yourself. So they're not really happy about this arrangement. But a young married couple moves in with them, and the daughter of the house kind of strikes up a friendship/relationship with the wife of the couple. And obviously homosexuality was not really accepted in the 1920s, so there's a whole lot of issues coming along with that. I love this book from start to finish. I think even though it's so long, most of that is necessary to tell this story properly, so I didn't really mind it. I love the characters, I love the relationship. The plot goes into a direction that you might not be expecting, which is always fun and nice, and I just really enjoyed this. And I also really like Sarah Waters' writing style. I've yet to read anything else by her, but I honestly can't wait. I should get on that ASAP because I love this one, and I'm sure I love her other things as well. So if you have not read The Paying Guest yet, do it. Next, I have Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo. It's set in Nigeria, and it follows a young married couple who are unable to conceive children because the woman is infertile, so the husband is pressured by his family, despite his wishes, to take on a second wife to bear his children. This is another book where the plot goes in a direction that you're not expecting, and I love that about it. I thought it was very well told, it was very moving, very emotional. And it's also again told to the historical, or not the historical, but the political background of Nigeria at the time of this taking place. And I just found it fascinating. Again, a country I know very little about, so I really appreciate this kind of input when I can get it. This is another one of those stories about humans in situations that they shouldn't have to experience, but still somehow make it work. and I just find that very fascinating. At the same time, it is quite heartbreaking at times, and I just love books that can play with my emotions, which this definitely can. Again, if you have not read this, do it. Second to last, I have Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. This is a very popular book, so I'm just gonna mention it quickly. In this book, we follow a single mother called Jane who moves to a new town. She puts her child in the primary school there and thereby gets to know the other parents at the school. And she finds some friends, finds some enemies. This book is very fun because it's told in 2 different timelines, I guess. So first timeline is kind of the present. The second timeline is the future after a costume party where one of the parents has died. And we don't know who died, we don't know what happened, but sometimes we have these like police interviews interspersed with the main story. I think it has very important and good messages that it's sending. It deals with some heavier topics, but kind of does it in a fun way. Not a fun way, but a humorous way at times. And it kind of lightens it up a little bit while not making a fun of the thing itself, which I personally really appreciate. I love this book. It was my introduction to this author, and I've since read several more books by her that I like, but this is still my favorite. And if you somehow have missed the train, join it now. It's not too late. And my final book on this list is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. This is a horror thriller kind of book. I find it difficult to put this in a specific genre because it's very weird and not really comparable to anything else. In this book, we follow I think, journalist that's very interested in this elusive director person called Cordova, and the movies that he has made have always been very strange and have always resonated with him. Anytime he tried to like get more information on Cordova, he was rejected, or like stones were put in his path so that he couldn't get to the information that he wanted. But sometime later, the daughter of Cordova commits suicide, and this kind of sparks his interest again, and he gets involved again, and he gets pulled deeper and deeper and deeper into this web of mystery and strangeness surrounding this director and his movies. This book is completely batshit crazy, and especially towards the end, as the reader, you kind of start to lose your mind a little bit. At least that's my experience. To somebody who wants like all loose ends tied up, it might not be satisfying enough. And I know that there's plenty of people who do not enjoy this book. So I'm not saying this is a like general favorite of absolutely everyone, but I personally enjoyed it a lot. It kind of has to be your thing though. And I do understand if it's not. I loved it. I think it's a must read, or at least a must try to read, because if you don't even give it a shot, I think you really might miss out on something that could surprise you. And that is it for all of my favorite standalones. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found something new that might be interesting to you to check out as well. Let me know what are your favorite standalones in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I upload every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. I will see you very soon with another video. Until then, have a lovely week. Bye!